There you go. Let's bring in Jensen Lewis from the. Is he with us?
There he is. What's up, Jensen?
Jensen, how are you?
Hi guys, how are you? Good.
We're doing good, man. I'm hoping, and you know this, like there's the diehard fan base for the Guardians, and then there's a large portion of the fan base that they're casual fans that come in and out. And obviously this offseason there was not a lot of buzz created for the Guardians, for the casual fan. So my hope was they'd get off to a great start on this road trip, and by the time they came home, people would be excited. And I feel like that's happening. Now, you still got 4 games to go on this road trip. But the fact that the offense, I know Bieber's been lights out, but the fact that the offense is off to such a good start has some of the casual fans excited, which I'm excited about. Are you? I know it's way early. You can't read too much into it. But the Guardians, as you know, have had so many rough starts offensively over the years. I think it's really exciting that some of these young guys especially have gotten off to good starts. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that jumps off is when you look just at the run differential around the league through, 5-6 games, the Guardians are third in Major League Baseball. I don't think that we had that on our bingo cards, even with facing the Oakland Athletics for 4 games to start. But, yeah, again, when you look at the overall construction and knowing what happened this offseason, this front office was basically saying we're going to try and see what the young kids can do. That's where our bread is buttered. We're going to give Tyler Freeman, we're going to have Brian Rocchio, Bo Naylor, Will Brennan. Those guys are going to get the lion's share of opportunities at least through the month of April, if not, maybe half of May. Kyle Manzardo had an unbelievable spring training. I'd be shocked if he doesn't get a call sometime in the month of May because his back can legitimately help this lineup. Chase DeLauder maybe a little bit farther down the line, but you can kind of see that the future is now as far as where this front office and this coaching staff had in mind this offseason of, if our offense is going to work, it's going to be in-house.
Jensen, I got a question. This is more of a training and a philosophical question. When I played baseball in high school, you had one kid that made through 85. If you saw a kid that throw 88, you was like, oh my gosh, this guy's throwing heat. Nowadays, they got these farm systems in places where they're getting guys who were throwing 92, now they're throwing 96, 97. What's going on with this revolution with pitchers where they're finding out how to get guys to turn up the velocity, even when some guys are a little bit older or longer in the tooth, and seems like they haven't been, didn't have that level of velocity?
Yeah, I really found out about it, G, when I was in Arizona in 2012, and that was Trevor Bauer's rookie year when he was drafted into the organization. And I had an opportunity to kind of go through his long toss routine when he eventually got called up to AAA. I was his catch play partner. And I didn't go through the drive line part of the weighted balls and, the explosive exercises with the physio activities and all of that. But it's been tried and true for years about long toss is the healthiest thing that you can do to have not only increased arm strength, but increased velocity over time. Now, what you've seen is an explosion of driveline and their techniques, the Rapsodo tools to be able to really look at the biomechanics and the spin rates. A lot of this has become a science project that every organization from the big leagues down has instituted and tweaked to their own, philosophical mantra, if you will. So that was really the advent, and I think I was right in there towards the end of my career when it really became a big part of the daily routines, not only of specific guys, but has grown now into, and you mentioned it, I mean, my end of my career, I was, 93, 94 miles an hour. I would be a soft tosser right now as a right-hander in our day and age. So it's crazy to think that average fastball velocity has increased so quickly. Now, the byproduct of that, guys, and we don't have enough, I think, time yet to really get a objective look, but we get now 15, 20 years down the road to get a pretty good idea of what this does positively and negatively. We'll understand where organizations are going to try and tweak this to be able to keep pitchers healthier in a longer duration of time.
We started the show, Jensen, today talking about Shane Bieber and his terrific second start following his terrific first start. When you look at Shane and watch his first 2 starts, 14 innings this season, 20 strikeouts, 1 walk, does he look every bit as back as he did in 2020 when he won the Cy Young? And what has impressed you most about his first 2 starts for the Guardians this season?
Yeah, I took the Oakland start with a grain of salt because the lineup is basically a really souped-up AAA lineup. And what I really wanted to see last night was not only stepping up in weight class as far as offensive pedigree, but he's always, and he even admitted it last night in the postgame, he's always had great battles against Luis Castillo. I think for him, the two things that stand out, yeah, there's a little uptick in velocity. I'm not as concerned about that or putting as much weight on that as I am the lateness and the depth of the off-speed stuff. And another thing, too, to watch as we move forward, guys, now Austin Hedges sort of alluded to it. They got away from being as much cutter happy towards the end of last year when he came back, and maybe even the last couple of years. He's really been very good about these first two starts, mixing in a curve, a slider, a changeup, a cutter. You're upwards now of 4 or 5 pitches he can go to at any point, and you're asking opposing hitters to have to be ready for that when he's got the pinpoint control already. It's 20 strikeouts against 1 walk, and that is going back to 2020 when he won the Cy Young and he was literally dominant for 12 straight starts.
Jens, I'm curious. You mentioned the A's, and I mean they're just horrible. They were horrible last year. They're going to be horrible this year. When in your first year in the big leagues was 2007, right? If I remember correctly, 2007. Obviously, the Indians were great that year. You guys had a great season. 2008, you were kind of middling, and then in 2009 and 10, you guys didn't win a lot of games. How tough is that? I know it's early in the season. Maybe it's not as tough, but when you get late in the year, and you know, like by July, that you have nothing to play for, how hard is it going to work every day?
They may know by the middle of May, Bull.
Yeah, I think so.
To be honest with you. And I would throw the Chicago White Sox in there, too. I mean, that's as awful a baseball team to watch in the first week of this season as I've seen in a long time. But to your idea on Oakland, and there are a couple of guys right there that are veterans. You're thinking of Alex Wood. You think of J.D. Davis, who could be trade chips for them. But I think it's more – this is so unique for Oakland with the whole move to Vegas coming and knowing the fan base is, protesting by staying outside the stadium. That, to me, is a hard thing to do, come to work every day, just because you know that it's a year in transition. This is likely it for them if they don't extend the lease another year to get this ballpark in Vegas ready. But it's hard, man. When you're looking up in, Memorial Day and it's – you're 7 games out already. That is pretty debilitating, trying to come to the park and win every day. Yeah.
Jensen, the Guardians start the season off with 10 straight road games. They play 8 games in a row without a day off. Then they get a day off in the 2 games to finish up the series against Minnesota before they have the home opener here on Monday. Did Major League Baseball kind of do them dirty with this opening schedule? Because it seems like most teams had a series and a day off between, but 8 straight days to start the season on the road on the West Coast. Seems like a pretty dirty deed for the Guardians to get their 2024 campaign underway.
I'm actually okay with them starting out west, and I actually preferred it, when we've had Goodyear as our home in spring training, because your body clock and your routine is so predicated already on that time zone and getting up. I think it feels much easier to be able to start out there and get kind of that regular season routine under your belt and then come back. Because you're going to have weird game times with all the home openers and all the different pomp and circumstance for day games because it's still early as far as the Midwest goes and temperatures being cold, that sort of thing. The schedule makers have never done Cleveland any favors, it feels like. I mean, I just go back to my experience. We started in Texas one year, which was great, but usually we would start in Oakland, we would start in L.A., we'd start in Seattle. A lot of this is because we know what the weather's going to be, but you can't get out of your own way when, we're going to have the Mets start at home and, they've got the weather issues. So I think Carl Ravitch brought up a great point. Interested in your guys' thoughts in it. He said if you start out on the road for your first series, your next series should be played at home so that you don't have some of these teams that are on the road. They might be 1-7, 2-8, and then their fan base is like, well, this sucks. Like, not really excited about our home opener anymore because our team is not played very well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Carl Ravitch is right on with that.
And just 8 games in a row, like your bullpen.
I actually, I don't know, Jensen played, I didn't, so he would know better than me. I wouldn't mind that because I feel like I'd rather have the off days later in the season when I'm tired.
Absolutely. And Bull, to that point, you usually see a lot of managers deploy pretty much the entirety of their bullpen just to protect the rotation arms those first 2 or 3 turns through. So you knew that you were going to pitch anyway. I think we all would leave spring training knowing everyone's pitching in the first series. Everyone's probably going to pitch in the second series if you're starting on the road. And you already had it in your mind made up that, guys, it doesn't matter. We could play 2 games day off, 2 games day off. Everyone's going to play. I would rather be out of the chute 8 in a row, get the off day. And as you said, Bull, when you really need the rest as a pitcher, I want that, in June, July, and August.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Jensen, as a pitcher, you've been able to watch the Guardians organization or the Indians back in the day. You look at what they've been able to do with Kluber and Bieber and even Cliff Lee and Sabathia and some of those other guys. If you're Shane Bieber, how do you stay focused and go pitch when in the back of your mind you're like, I'm probably not getting paid here? How does that work?
I mean, the easy answer is you're going to get paid at some point, whether it's here or somewhere else, if you take care of the work and you put up the numbers. And for guys that I was teammates with, I can remember with CC Sabathia back in 2008 coming into spring training and, saying, hey, if you give me 5 years and $100 million, I'm probably signing on the dotted line. Back then, guys, think about that. CC Sabathia, 5 years and $100 million. What a bargain that would have been. So, again, and I'll even take Cliff Lee the following year, too, because if you guys remember, Cliff didn't make the postseason roster in 2007, but goes out and wins, the Cy Young in 2008, goes 22-3, ends up getting traded to Philly and what brought back Carlos Carrasco and a host of other guys. But I think for me, and just kind of addressing where Shane would be, you can already tell just by his demeanor. He's laser focused in his answers. There's an edge to him already. And you get that too by putting in the work, over the off season where he went to Driveline. He did the necessary upkeep. He did the maintenance and he made the adjustments. When you've put in, it's like any other walk of life, guys. When you put in the work and you know that it's going to augment your talent, boy, it's a lot easier going to work and just letting the work kind of speak for you.
Jensen, you mentioned Kyle Manzardo earlier. He seems like the safest bet of all the prospects for the Guardians. But I'm curious about his defense. I don't have enough of a feel for his defense because, as much as we love Naylor, he's not the best defensive first baseman. And do you expect when Manzardo comes up for him to be the primary first baseman with Naylor mostly DHing or more of a 50-50 split?
Yeah, boy, I think we wait to see where Stephen Vogt is day in and day out for the first 3 to 4 weeks because you've already seen where we have Austin Hedges catch last night and Bo Naylor is your DH. I think you have to really understand not only where your versatility is off the bench of does it make sense to have Bo as the DH, and then if you have to pinch hit for Hedgie, do you just slide Bo in, to catch there? David Fry gives you a way more of an opportunity if you need to pinch run, per se, for Hedgie. Yeah. And I think the other part of this, too, guys, something to kind of keep track of. Is Austin going to be the personal catcher for Shane Bieber? Through 2 starts, I wouldn't change a thing. Those guys are working fabulous together every 5th day. If that's the way – in L.A., they did it for years. Austin Barnes couldn't hit a lick, but he caught Clayton Kershaw every 5th day. It didn't matter. He could hit, 091. He was still in the lineup. I think you might see that moving forward just because of the dynamic that Austin and Shane have already here in 2024.
Jensen, what's been the biggest noticeable difference in your eyes in how the Guardians have approached their at-bats this season under Stephen Vogt compared to how they did the last few years under Terry Francona?
Yeah, I think it was the change, honestly, with Chris Valaika. He kind of had that theme of impact first. Well, we saw balls in play last year trying to use speed pressure. You're not going to get very far knowing the American League lineups you're going to have to go up against in October. So, really trying to slug, really trying to get those extra base hits. And the numbers speak for themselves. As I said off the top with you guys, I didn't have it on my bingo card that the Cleveland Guardians, after 5 or 6 games, would be 3rd in run differential in the entirety of big league baseball, even playing against Oakland and Seattle. But to me, I think you have young guys that have taken a massive step forward in their approach at the plate, their pitch-to-pitch adjustment, and most importantly for young players, plate discipline. Guys like to get anxious when they come up. They want to make an impact, and that can really be something that opposing pitchers exploit in a big way. So far, and it's early, it's just a weekend, If you were to ask me this question again at the end of April and we still have this similar trend, then I think that mentality of changing from, hey, we just want to put the ball in play to we don't want to impactfully put the ball in play, it will have made such a difference, especially in the standings.
And staying on the topic of Vogt, Jensen, obviously you played, and it's not a new trend here, but we've seen managers come from playing a year off, and the next thing you know, they're managing MLB club. How would you have felt as a player if a guy who was a peer of yours for many years, all of a sudden a year later was your new manager? How do you think that relationship player to manager works when these are guys who played against Vogt for 5, 6, 7 years, just literally a year and a half ago?
Laureano played with him.
Yeah, I didn't think that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it was a huge part of the hiring process was that relatability theme. And, talking with a lot of different executives on the outside, even some people within the Seattle organization, you heard nothing but rave reviews about the person. That was never in doubt. Really, it was, okay, when you go into these hypotheticals, how do you handle when you've lost 7 in a row, your young players aren't playing well, your veterans are disgruntled? I think you had to put all those different scenarios in front of them. And I think the elixir is that Stephen Vogt was in the clubhouse for all this stuff. He knew by talking to guys. And as a catcher, you get that unique ability from both sides of the ball that those perspectives are something he goes through on a regular basis. So I think the difference makers for me, guys, ultimately, just from the outside looking in, would be, number one, he's got the intelligence to do it, and you have to be humble enough to know when you got to learn, when you got to listen, and he has expressed that to the nth degree, that he doesn't have all the answers right now, but he's going to learn, he's going to listen, he's going to rely on his staff. And the other one is empathy, because this game is really damn hard to play, guys, and he's with a young team. And I think that part of it, too, of just stepping off the field is being able to take those young guys aside and say, fellas, I know how hard it is to play. I was literally just there. And sometimes it's different. You guys are parents. You think about talking to your kids. You say it 10 times. And then someone from the outside comes in and says it once, and it clicks. You're like, oh, well, I've been saying this to you for like 10 years. I've been trying to get you to do it. So I think that was a huge thing from that communication aspect. At the end of that hiring process was, at the end of the day, when we have our manager step in front of this group, is he going to have the ear of not only the young guys that just got up here, but the guys he was literally teammates or opponents against just a couple of years ago?
Jensen, how concerned are you, if at all, about Triston McKenzie, coming off the year where he was injured but didn't have the surgery, and his velocity being down in his first start?
I am, Bull, and again, I don't want to jump the gun or be prisoner of the moment, but we look at stuff, and to me, the hitter tells me as much as anything about where that pitcher is, whether it's command, whether it's velo, whether it's deceptiveness. I don't want to pass any judgment yet. I want him to have at least 3 or 4 starts. I hope that happens. And again, looking at the possible lineups he's coming up against, we're going to know if he's right or not, just by the competition he'll face. But I think it is something to monitor. Again, first start out of the chute, it was something that I picked up on very early, that this didn't match up with what I kind of saw in Goodyear. So I'll kind of wait, see what he does here against Minnesota, and then over this homestand against probably the Yankees as well.
Non-Guardians question, Jensen, but a baseball question. How impressive and kind of crazy is it that Mookie Betts has been able to go from a Gold Glove outfielder to a second baseman to now playing shortstop, while also being maybe one of the 3 or 4 best hitters in all of baseball? From all your time playing, to see a guy go across the diamond like that has to be one of the most unique kind of stories in baseball I can remember. So how crazy is that he's able to do it at such a high level across all 3 phases?
Well, first of all, he and Juan Soto have the best line of protection going in baseball, with Mookie having Ohtani hitting behind him and obviously Soto having Judge. I think the intriguing part of watching Mookie is he's been a super athlete in whatever he does. I mean, he's a world champion bowler, going and doing what he does there. He can whip you in ping pong with the ball to bat skills, if you will, or the hand-eye coordination there. But to me, it's his willingness to work. In guys that I've talked to, like Freddie Freeman said it the other day, he's literally going through game speed reps before batting practice. When he's taking ground balls, he's asking coaches, like, hit this to me like it's game speed. I need that real-time effect to understand how I've got to make adjustments. He can play second. He can play short. He can play all the outfield. The only thing standing in his way, guys, and they'll never let him do it, is get on the mound. But I'm sure he could blow 95 by somebody with the arm strength. You don't want to risk Tommy John there, but what can this guy not do? I mean, these are otherworldly numbers to start just a week into the season.
Jensen, to piggyback that, do you think, that Ohtani is pitching? He hits.
Not this year. No pitching.
Not this year.
Yeah,
but do you believe that you're going to see at younger levels, managers and coaches give guys more of an opportunity to play different positions, or to, learn to switch hit, or to learn to pitch and hit the ball at the same time?
Yeah, there's actually a kid, down at University of Florida right now, Jack Caglione. He's going to be a first-rounder coming out this year. He is kind of been dubbed the mini Ohtani, or the college Ohtani, because he does go both ways there as far as pitching and hitting. I think that it takes such a supreme athletic nature. I mean, guys, you remember we grew up, it was Bo Jackson, right? Being able to play multiple sports, and then it was Deion Sanders, who made it look real easy from baseball to football. I don't know if we'll see another Ohtani-type talent. I mean, he's just the DNA in of itself. Like, they don't make human beings like that. It just doesn't happen. And I think that's the other part of this, too, is baseball is the ultimate equalizer. You take Ohtani and his physical build, then you look at a guy like Jose Altuve, Tim Lincecum, when he was pitching, no one – I mean, he didn't even get let in the stadium at Fenway Park. They thought he was some kid off the street. So baseball is that equalizing sport where the talent is there regardless of physical stature. But to do both sides of it, I mean, the work it takes just to be really good at hitting at the big league level is so mind-bogglingly difficult. And then to try and ask someone to be on your game every fifth day as a starter and dominate the way that he has, I just don't know if we'll ever see it again in our game.
Jensen, Tigers, last thing. Tigers off to a great start. They're 4-0. Are you buying them this year? You think they're a contender? I mean, they finished ahead of the Guardians last year. Are they a contender with the Guardians and the Twins, or no?
Yeah, well, I think honestly it could be a three-team race. I think Cleveland and Detroit are very big-time live candidates to overtake Minnesota to win the Central. The thing for me, it's twofold for Detroit. They have to stay healthy in the rotation. Gosh, they have been just snake bit in the last 3 to 4 years with big-time injuries to their young starters. If you get a bounce back from Jack Flaherty and Kenta Maeda, Tarek Skubal looked awesome in his first start. You get Casey Mize there at the bottom of the rotation, Reese Olson as well. Back in their bullpen is very solid. It's just a matter of the black hole that's at the bottom of their lineup with Javi Baez and however they want to fill out the rest of 7, 8, 9. They're going to be in it. They are very consistent. They're well managed by A.J. Hinch. And most importantly, they're playing with confidence. They still feel like they're overlooked in this division, so it wouldn't shock me if they're in contention in August and September.
The Javi Baez thing is, I mean, I got to give the Cubs credit. I was pissed they didn't sign him, but, man, he's been a disaster. That guy went from being like an all-star to he's like the worst player in baseball now. It's crazy. Jensen, great stuff. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it reminds me of Vladdy Guerrero when he would swing and he would actually hit the ball in the other's batter's box. But it's like Javi's got to be on home plate to be able to hit some of these pitches he's swinging at. Bull, you're right. Chicago dodged a massive bullet, no question about it.
Yeah, it's nuts. Thanks, Jensen. Good stuff,
Jensen.
man. Keep up the good
Appreciate you,
work.
man.
We'll talk to you soon.